Hi everyone, welcome back to another video in the Web Security Academy series. In today's video, we'll be covering lab number 1 in the DOM-based vulnerabilities module titled DOM XSS using web messages. If you do not have an account on the Web Security Academy, you can get one by visiting the URL portswigger.net/websecurity and clicking on the sign up button. I already have an account and I am logged in, so to access the exercise, I'm going to click on Academy. Select all labs, do a search on DOM-based vulnerabilities and select lab number 1 titled DOM XSS using web messages. All right, let's get started. This lab demonstrates a simple web message vulnerability. To solve this lab, use the exploit server to post a message to the target site that causes the print function to be called. All right, so our target goal over here is to exploit the DOM-based XSS vulnerability and call the print function on the victim user. Let's access the lab. Now notice over here, this is the built-in browser in Burp, and so all my requests are already being passed in my Burp proxy. All right, so the first thing that I do when it comes to DOM-based vulnerabilities is essentially just view the page source to see if there is any insecure JavaScript that introduces these types of vulnerabilities. So let's right-click and view page source and go down right over here. And right away, I could see there's custom JavaScript that is being added. And it uses the window.eventListener function over here. So what this does is essentially it just fires up an event whenever a message is sent to the application. And the event that it fires up is this function right over here. So you could see it takes in the content of the message and then it adds it to the ADS element. So it uses .inner HTML, which is known to be dangerous if it uses client-supplied input and then directly injects it into the DOM. So over here, that's what it's doing. It's essentially taking our message input, which is coming from the client side, and then adding it to the element ADS. So if you go up right over here, you could see the ID ADS is for this div element right over here. All right, so again, right away, you could see that it takes an input from the client side and injects it into the page without any filtering or encoding, which means that it's vulnerable to DOM-based cross-site scripting. So the first thing that we need to do is send a message to the application that contains our XSS payload. And to do that, we're going to use the function called post message. So we'll write it up right over here and then use our exploit server in order to send it to the victim user. So we'll start off with an iframe. And then we'll add the source of the iframe to be just the application itself. So let's go back to the application, copy it, put it in here, and then we'll say onload is equal to this, and this has to be in double quotes. So this dot content window dot post message. So we're essentially just posting a message to the application. And let's close this off. And in post message over here, it takes in 2 parameters. The first parameter is the message that we want to send, and then the second parameter is the target origin. So for the message that we want to send is just a simple cross-site scripting payload, which is image source is equal to, let's say, 1. Now, 1 does not exist over here. That's not a valid source for the image, and so it'll error out. And then we're going to say on error, call the print function. And that's pretty much it. So what'll happen over here is when we post this message, what it'll do is it'll run this script and then it'll take the input of our message, which is just this XSS payload, and then it'll add it in the ADS element. So it'll add it right over here. Since it doesn't look like it's doing any filtering or encoding of input or on output really, what'll happen is this will be viewed as HTML code, and then it'll call the print function when it tries to load this image over here because it doesn't find the source of the image, which is just 1. Okay, this looks good. Now again, post message takes in 2 parameters. The first one is the message itself, and then the second one is the target origin. Now for target origin, we're just going to say star, which essentially means I don't have a preference. Where it's sent, it could be sent anywhere. So let's copy this. Go back to our application, go to the exploit server, and then add it in the body of our exploit server. And what we'll do is we'll first view it in our own browser. If we're presented with the print functionality, that means our exploit is good and we could send it to the victim user. If we're not presented with the print functionality, that means we have some kind of error in our exploit and we need to debug it before we send it to the victim user. So let's click on View Exploit right over here. It's loading the application in an iframe, and here we go. We got presented with the print functionality. Perfect, so our exploit is working as intended. Let's go back to the exploit server and deliver it to the victim user. And here we go. We got presented with the congratulations, you solved the lab message. All right, so we successfully completed the exercise by exploiting the DOM-based XSS vulnerability. In the next lab, we'll look at another case of a DOM-based vulnerability.